Hello, I'm Jonjo. Welcome to Lime War. Today we've got Fireblade versus Lebby93, who I'm just going to call Lab, like a Labrador. So, both players have started pretty close to each other. Not too close, though. So we got Fireblade about over here. Lab is over here, and Lab's got a pretty decent start. He's got an Energy Wow. He's got a whole city there available to him. Whereas the starting location... Fireblade doesn't have too much going for him just yet, but he does have a city that he can grab. He's got industry there. They've set up their lines first. They have noticed each other. I assume Lab can see that, yeah. Lab's gone for energy straight away. This is something I would avoid doing, just because it takes a while for energy to be produced, and it will build up straight away, and you can leave it a little bit, because you've got some storage, but Lab has gone heavy in the eco right now. He's got 2 towns, which is pretty much all of his pre-construction bonus at this point, especially with that one as well. And really could do with getting some units on the ground, whereas Fireblade has gone for factories with tanks. Another factory is being produced here and a barracks there. I think that Fireblade has the advantage if he can actually do some damage early on. On the other hand, looking at the territory grab, this map is pretty balanced-ish if this was the center. It looks like Lab is going to get cut off on territories as well, especially as they're not producing any units. So Fireblade has a lot of territory to grab over here if they can actually cut off Lab in the center there. Which I think is what he's going to be trying to do. He's going to try and take the territory rather than do the damage with the infantry. The infantry are going to go down here. I can imagine these tanks, though, are going to be heading straight towards the enemy, and he's going to need some energy for that soon. So does he have an energy well somewhere? Because if he doesn't, he's going to have to rely on power plants, or he's just simply going to run out of energy. And by the looks of it, I don't see any energy wells for him. So the tanks might be a good idea to start with. But I can't see how he's going to fund it, unless I'm being completely blind. He might go for the water, but I doubt it very much. Yeah, so he has some tanks up already, or one tank up already. Oh no, they're hiding behind the factories. We've got some just hiding there. I'm assuming he's going to wait for these lot to produce, and then he'll have 7 tanks to throw at the enemy straight away. On the other side of it, Lab has decided to start producing stuff. So he's gone for a power plant early on as well. Again, I just don't think you need the energy for that straight away. And he is building a tank, and that is, I think, artillery. We've got a barracks up there. So Fireblade is building his tanks up, and he's got this unit there, and he's got the tanks moving in. This one's going to join there, and it looks like Lab's going for a bit of a scout right now. He's going to spot these tanks, so what is he going to do about it right now? Doesn't look like he's changing anything up too much. He could build a airfield if he hadn't built this already. He might be able to get an airfield soon. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. These tanks are probably going to end up rushing over towards him really quickly. But if these tanks are going to have to deal with these units, because although a small group, if they get to the structures, they will start doing a lot of damage. So the tanks are going to have to make sure they kill these units. Or he'll have to bring these units down, which will stop him capturing. And as I said, he's going to rely on power plants for this attack. And I think I keep saying that power plants are like half as effective. That's not true. I've noticed recently that these produce 8 units of energy every minute, I believe. I looked at the stats, I saw it on Discord. Whereas an energy wow produces 24 units of energy per minute. So they are 1/3 effective, but yet cost the same amount. So Fireblade's going to struggle to keep these tanks running, even though he is using power plants, but he can just build another one if he wants, because power plants can go anywhere. That is the advantage of them. On Fireblade's side, he has expanded up and down, and that I think is just simply to cut off Lab at this point. And he's going to try and see how far he can get into this way. Those tanks are being told, I think, to go this way and attack that, but he hasn't changed them. There we go, he's changed it now. To use all land units. Now it's just tanks. And he's struggling with energy already. He tried to put them on haste mode, which in my opinion is not a good idea. They're not going to make it. They'll get there faster if they had the energy. There we go, they've run out of energy, so Lab can see that Fireblade is doing unfortunately bad with energy, and that is saving his town right now. And I think we've got 2 extreme ends of the spectrum here, where we've got the energy being used too cautiously, where you've got so much energy at the beginning when you don't need it. He's overstocked on energy right now. It's an investment he didn't need. He could have put that into factories and started producing more artillery and other things, and then built this later on when this started to deplete. And he's even going for another power plant right now. He's really dedicated on having loads of energy. Fireblade, on the other hand, unfortunately, is a good spot in general to cut off the enemy with territory, but it's just not good enough to run these tanks. He might have been better off, at least now, switching into artillery before these tanks started to produce. He just simply can't afford them. He's going to need another power plant. Or even an energy well, like build a navy yard here, capture this territory and get the energy well up and running, because there's 2 available right here. There's 3 actually, 4. There's loads of energy over here that he could claim through the water. And right now his tanks are kind of like sitting ducks because of this, which is unfortunate because he really had the advantage right at the beginning. Now Lab is bringing in his tanks up into this battle here, and he will be able to attack these quite nicely, especially as they stray off. He can focus on going in this direction, and he'll be able to take 2 on a time with 3 units, as well as the artillery. And right now, because of the slow progression of these tanks, it looks like Lab is going to cut through and take away the territory from Fireblade, which was probably his biggest advantage of this. Correct me if I'm wrong. What do you think either player should have done at the beginning? You can let me know in the comments and I will reply. And I've also noticed that 33%-ish of people who watch my channel are subscribed. So that means 66% of you viewers aren't subscribed. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content. And these tanks are starting to progress further. I wonder if Fireblade's got his other power plant running. He's nearly got it running. So these tanks will start becoming more effective. But unfortunately, they're about to die before they can do so. However, he is producing a second wave of tanks, mixed in with some artillery, and they're going to go down here to stop this attack there. And I think Fireblade really wanted to take out the eco, which is probably the best idea right now. Not to worry too much about the energy. There's too much energy that he can see. And to focus on the eco. He did manage to get one of them, which is going to hinder their eco. So let's have a look at the eco right now. Got 540 from Fireblade and about 580 from Lab. So Lab is ahead in eco, and that's mostly because of the town. But Lab is trying to expand as much as he can. He hasn't managed to expand too much, but that's because he's had to deal with the attacks from Fireblade. He is going to try and take over this area. He's got a massive defensive line here, which is a bit too costly to have going, especially this early in the game. Try and fund that. But his units over here are being taken on by the artillery, and there's just not enough infantry here to go that way. The artillery are just going to outrange you and kill you before you get there. On the other hand, these ones are taking territory away from Fireblade again, so let's have a look at how far Fireblade's got. These units can get to probably all of this territory. That would be good for him, as some units chase him down that way. But he does have a fair amount of units going this way. It looks like he's gone into artillery and he's left the tanks off. That might be intentional to show that he's switched into artillery and not using tanks anymore. But his tanks are on the move now and they're going straight for that town. Looking at the path, it looks like he's trying to sneak around the front. Like, he's assuming the enemy's units might come this way. So I think he's trying to curve around that way and go up past the energy well to take that out along the route. Personally, I'd probably send the artillery with them, because artillery don't capture territory that well, and it might just add in that extra damage along their route. He's bringing in the artillery for defense, and making up a little line here to stop the progression of units, and it looks like he was right to go this way, unless he ends up having to come this way. Because Lab has his units coming over through the top part here, and they're going to fill the line this way instead. And with those tanks, the Fireblade is capturing territory, which, to be fair, tanks do capture territory really fast. But tanks are definitely more of an offensive unit you want in the battlefield as quick as possible, so when they stop to take over the territory, you're giving your opponent more time to react to what they're seeing. And in doing so, Lab is going to try and build fortifications. He's got enough money to switch into air units, which is probably what I would do. Tanks are not very effective against helicopters, pretty much because they can't shoot them. So that's probably how I'd go. I think they can actually shoot air units, but helicopters outrange tanks. But those tanks are going to be moving in, and they are going to hit one of these fortifications, but as they're building it at this point, tanks are going to be taking on units that are damaged, because these will lose health due to fatigue by building these fortifications. He's got these units on haste mode, so when they move they are using up more energy, which I'm not sure he can supply. He does have 2. He's going for eco now. We've got some towns up there being built. And this industry is a good target as well, because they earn quite a bit of money too. But generally speaking, when it comes to eco, I definitely suggest taking over the land, as that is much more important and valuable than taking over the towns and cities. Especially this early on in the game. Although Fireblade's taking on these towns, they cost, I think, 300 each a town. Can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure it's 300 each, whereas you could buy 2 barracks for that and have production of infantry that could take over the rest of the map over there, which he hasn't yet claimed, and then build those towns later on, and that would gain him more economy in the long run. He does get the kill on that. Those tanks only just surviving long enough to take out that town, which is unfortunate for Lab, but Fireblade is gonna reap the rewards from that, slowing down his opponent. On the other hand, Lab is pretty much defending most of this game. He's forgotten about these units over here. Well, he hasn't forgotten. They've just reached the end of their goal. More units are heading that way, but he could also be gaining some territory this direction as well. But he does want to try and put the pressure on Fireblade and secure what he has. He's rebuilding his town, both of them. He's rebuilding both of the towns. Try and gain that eco advantage, which I'm not sure is necessarily the right move. Not this early on. But because he is going to be trapped, the eco might actually be worth it in the end. It really depends how both players play this out. As you can see, Fireblade has a lot of territory left to grab, and it probably would have been better off building the barracks. Start sending off more units this way. And with the amount of units you got here, split them off into 2 groups. Have these lot coming up this way and some lot going this way, and that way they'll probably be more effective. As they keep walking, some of them are only catching up before this territory is already claimed. He is now building barracks. He's also built a nuke silo. It's rare I see them this early unless I'm actually playing. Both players are unwilling to commit to an engagement right now. I do feel like they should switch up now. They've been playing on the ground for quite a lot of this. Could be interesting to see some navy yards putting some transports across and claiming these territories as well. Or going into air units is probably the way I'd go with this. On either side, I don't see any anti-air from either player, so that's how I would react. I feel like the first player who changes to anti-air is going to get an advantage. As long as they play it right, they need to store up some units, not just reveal the first one they get. And Fireblade is trying to capture the territory over this way now. He's secured these locations. He's going to send his units out a bit further to capture some territories and to potentially stop Lab from getting out there. Got some tanks moving in. I don't think that's at the fortifications. That's beyond it. It looks like he's moving out a force to go on the offensive right now. But that is a lot of artillery guarding this area. Even if you plough through the middle, they can just break off their lines and come straight through, and you'd end up being pincer attacked. From Lab's perspective, he's still not expanding too much. I'd say he should probably expand a bit more. These towns have been rebuilt, and Fireblade has been expanding a lot. So let's have a look at the eco. So this is Lab. He has nearly 700 a minute. Fireblade has 780 a minute. That's mostly because of this extra land he's got behind him. He can grab whenever he wants. Over here, Fireblade has successfully stopped the expanse of Lab. Not going to be able to claim these lands anymore. And Fireblade can get them instead, which will increase his eco probably a lot more than building these towns that they're building early on. I didn't spot this energy well, but if he spotted it earlier, he could have grabbed that quicker. Because this energy well is going to be more efficient than both of these combined. Do have a force coming through, trying to go through the centre by the looks of things. But if they're coming in one by one, especially against artillery, this is going to be a struggle. You need to try and make these lines bigger, make them into lines of 3 or 4. You can click on the line and press E, the E key, or the arrow keys that are down here usually. And that will spread out the lines into bigger ones, and then they'll end up having more of a front when they hit the artillery. And it looks like he's not willing to go through the enemy. He's going to just casually take a trip around the front of these artillery and have a good look at them. Meanwhile, as I said, if you go through the middle, the two sides are breaking off, and it looks like Fireblade has set up a nice pincer attack movement here. And they're going to come in through the sides. These are going to stop the reinforcement straight away. These are probably not going to get there in time to do anything. But we've got to remember that Fireblade also has a rocket being built, so I'm assuming what he's doing is waiting for this rocket to be built, building up enough army to take over after he destroys the defences here. I believe that's what he's planning to do. And the units here are just not going to be enough to take on this amount of artillery. And I was wrong. Maybe the units here will make it in time to fire off 1 or 2 shots. And I've noticed he's building up a lot of tanks now. He's built an energy well, and I think he's feeling more confident. And if you're going for an attack like this, you've only got 1 energy well, you probably need storage. I rarely talk about storage because generally I find I use too much energy before I can even store it, so I end up using it too much. But in this case, you don't have too much production, and it's too costly to get these producing. And he knows he's going to have a big battle later on, so I'd probably start building some storage in this situation. He does have some money for it as well. Let's have a look from Lab's side of things for now. So he has no idea there's a rocket there. He just knows there's a line of artillery here that he's trying to reduce. He's trying to place defences around to stop any attacks that come through. He seems to be trying to progressively move his forces forward with these defensive lines and testing out Fireblade's offensive capabilities, but at the same time he has got an airfield up and running, which is something that Fireblade didn't do. And I've noticed he's got storage, and unfortunately he has a lot of energy production through one of these and 2 of these. But he hasn't connected them with pipelines. You need to click this structure, press the K key, or there's a button over here which will have a chain, and you can click on the next one. There'll be like a blue line that comes through, and that'll set pipelines down, which means their storage is connected. So when one's full, it will pass on some of the energy to the other one's storage, and they'll all work together. So this storage is empty, and he's got the production for it. He just needs to connect the lines together so they're all producing for this storage as well. At this point, it looks like Fireblade isn't going to attack right now. He's waiting for that rocket, I believe, but Lab does not know this. He's expanding downwards, and he really wants some extra eco, so he's built some industry over here. Does seem to be struggling a little bit with eco. He's definitely in the green. He's on 750 right now, whereas Fireblade, not too worried about eco. He's definitely expanding more than trying to build up infrastructure. He's got some industry. And he is testing out his lines, just pushing them out there a bit more. And he's on 948. And he's definitely going for a lot of tanks and has finally started building his own airfield. But both players switching into air about the same time. But I feel like his rocket is ready, so he could fire that at any moment right now. And I think he wants his tanks to move out, but he's forgot to make sure they're all land commands. Which he will do soon, I'm sure. Mistake I used to make quite a lot. Still do sometimes. And another thing I've noticed is these units are going to follow this command, but sometimes, I'm not sure if it's too close, but when I drew them, it was sometimes too close, so I feel like I'll mention it. When you loop a command like this, where the end reaches the start, if it's too close, they'll start getting confused and start moving this way and then like this. And they'll get stuck in an endless death spiral. So if I was drawing a line like that, what I'd do is draw this down here, and then the second line to come up this way and reach the end. And that way you sort of avoid that death spiral. If you've ever experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. Both players seem to be just stationary now. We're just expanding and trying to fill in our gaps. But I was saying that too early. Lab is planning to go on the offensive now. He's avoiding this fortification over here. He's going to hit these lines here, which are not fortified, which is probably a good idea. And due to the shroud, he probably won't get spotted for a little while yet. But these tanks have decided to take the territory here, so they have been spotted at least a little bit. And what is Fireblade's response going to be? He's not doing anything about it right now. And he does have one unit here, which he probably doesn't even know exists right now. He probably thinks that's been lost. But he could have this guy going down here collecting territories. It's only a little thing, but when you see an opportunity, take it. There we go. He's going to be bringing his tanks out this way to try and defend against this army coming through. He does not know how big the army is, though. However, Fireblade's got quite a large tank army here. I haven't seen something of this size with tanks before in this game. At least I don't think I have. Even when I tried to do only tanks a long time ago, I just never could build up enough tanks fast enough. There you go, the artillery are firing on this single tank, and this one tank is going to take that damage pretty well. Although he's probably not going to get a kill, it is taking such a long time to kill these tanks, and now there's 4 of them on the front line. But from Lab's point of view, he can just about see these tanks rolling in, and I can imagine that's going to be a pain for Fireblade to actually handle. His energy consumption is going to go through the roof soon, but he's not in haste mode, which is a good thing, so that means he's using less energy. And by the looks of it, actually, he can handle this. I am wondering how much energy production he's got, so 34 per minute by the looks of it. And that's because these aren't moving, to be fair, they're actually stopped on the front line. You gotta remember that they only use energy when they're actually moving. They can still fire, and when they're grouped up like this, they don't need to move much. I don't think this attack from Lab is actually going to do too much now, especially not with the amount of tanks that have just joined on this front line. Is Lab doing anything about that? Because he was building helicopters. There we go, he's sending in the helicopters right now. But they can only go so far. I think he doesn't understand the range yet, because helicopters are really confusing. So what you can do is have the helicopters come over here like he placed it, which is probably their range. I'm assuming is about their range. When they land, you can then send them back in, like to here, and they'll go there. So they'll be within the range of the command, because helicopters don't need to use the airfield to return and refuel. They can just land on the ground and refuel there. It's unfortunate that he didn't notice that, because it's not very obvious that that's how it works. But it looks like he is bringing them to the front lines anyway, so I think he's just going to try and use them for defense. And Fireblade has been forced to use most of his tank army, and they are going to be heavily damaged and reduced in numbers, which means he might not be so confident using this rocket just yet. But he can see these helicopters, so is he going to do any anti-air? Because if he doesn't, yep, there we go, he spotted it, he's using anti-air now as well. Fireblade's focus on this area. These tanks are going to go towards these soon, I think. I think they're just going to take the damage and walk off, but they'll be alright. The artillery will move in closer, they're drawing the attention of these tanks soon enough. On the other side of it, Fireblade does have a lot more energy production. He is building a city as well, so he's in it for the long game now. And he pretty much has claimed most of these territories. He could get a navy yard or commandos to come take over this island here, which will increase his production. Not only that, it does have some trade routes, which will be very good for him if he wants to increase his eco much further. Lab on the other hand is a bit stuck here. Has been trapped. Even though he can get out, he could probably come take over this section, which is not in control of Fireblade that much. build up some navy yards, and then send off some units around the other side of the map. Probably not a bad idea. Could also do the same in this island over here, so at this ocean lake thing over here. But Fireblade has a lot of cash saved up as well, so he's got 1,400 up in capital that he could use to increase his production and other things. And that's pretty much because I assume his city's built now. No, it's not, so that's even going to increase his production a lot more. There we go, Fireblade's got his tanks over here. He's bringing in some other units, and he'll probably switch that into tanks as well. As you can see, Fireblade set up these lines of 3. Is how he's going to plan to attack a bit more head-on with units, multiple units hitting the front line first. And it does look like Lab is trying to sneak around the back, and these tanks have spotted them now. Yeah, I don't know if he's... Yeah, right, so he's realised now that the helicopters can move further out. They just only have these one sort of like jump ranges. They can only go so far in one go after land. So yeah, these tanks are pretty vulnerable right now. These helicopters are going to start taking them out really fast. And they're going to turn those tanks to scrap metal before they can actually do the damage. We have an airstrip. I think that's what he's done. He's used the airstrip to move them instead. Fireblade is retreating with his tanks, which is definitely a good idea. He does not want to be on the front lines with the tanks against those helicopters. I do think he needs a bit more anti-air. He's got 2 producing anti-air now as well, and he does have these helicopters and a striker, 2 strikers soon. Having infantry at the back lines is a good idea. I generally like to have only artillery on these front line defences, and if artillery come in to attack, I can send these infantry out to distract them while these artillery are already firing on them when they deploy. And the SAM units are moving in over here just as a helicopter seems to be making his way over to this area here, which is probably going to annoy Lab because it looks like it's a very exposed area, and just as he gets there, these SAM units are moving through the fog of war. There is only one there right now, but more are coming. And he's taken out one helicopter already, and another one's about to go down. But the helicopters will start targeting the SAM because they do prioritise anti-air target first. And now there's only 4 helicopters left. Soon to be 3. There we go. Now Fireblade has moved his defences. He's got like a captured line over here before, and now he's moved his lines this way, so he's feeling confident he controls this part of the map. Guess he feels like Donald Trump, and he's built a wall of artillery going across this way. But I think Lab has forgotten about the units here. No, he is still moving across. This one man is still alive. With all the units around him, behind enemy lines, essentially. Or in no man's land, because I guess this would be no man's land. And all the units just seem to be moving around him. He's one lucky guy. Just stood there, not knowing the danger he's in. And he's spreading out his SAM units as well. He's keeping them in a group, but spreading them out across this line, because he doesn't want to hit the helicopters to become a weakness for him. And I'm surprised how long he's keeping this rocket, because that is a problem with rockets. Rockets, the launch pad themselves cost 500, and the rocket itself costs 500, but storing them and keeping them there for a while also takes away a lot of economy. Through upkeep over every minute. He's building another one, so I think he's going to try and hit with 2 rockets soon. To take out the enemy. And at this point, I think it's getting a bit slow, so I am going to try and speed up this footage a bit until we get to someone's attempt at something. So I'm going to timescale it by 4 until I see something happening. And Lab is bringing back his units from this expanse over here down that way, and it looks like he's planning to attack, so I'm going to put it back to normal. I'll have a look from Fireblade's perspective. You can see the attack coming in. But the artillery are fortified here, and any air units that come in aren't going to be able to support because the SAM units here. I just don't think Lab has the production in air units for that. Still only has one airfield. He's got a lot of power plants and a lot of storage, but he hasn't connected them yet. He needs to connect them through the pipelines to be able to get the storage to actually work. Just in case you were wondering, and if you watch, then there you go, free tip. And now he split off his units this way, and he still left this one man standing there, which is funny. I'm going to see how long he survives for, shall we? One guy just over here. Let's see if he survives the whole game. Over here, we do have quite a large attack, and it is nice to see that he's using 4 lines now, instead of just singular lines. He's bringing his helicopters over on this side, which means they should be able to attack here and just slightly out of range of these SAM units. But some SAM units are just like right behind these artillery, and they are going to draw in those helicopters. But two helicopters are there, and they are actually managing to get some damage in there for free. And they are going to break the defences here, but the tanks have been brought in by Fireblade from the south, and they're on haste mode, which is using up his energy pretty fast, but he has the ability to do that now. I also have noticed that he's got commandos and transports, so I get the feeling that Fireblade does have a good understanding of how the mechanics work in this game. Because he's definitely done that on purpose. He's got commandos right next to that transport. He hasn't used them yet though, so we'll have to see what he plans to do there. And I just heard the rocket fire, so we got a rocket heading off. I don't know if he's going to hit here, because that's going to destroy his own units. Or is he heading it behind? That is a lot of artillery he's going to take out in one go, even... Yeah, and that was actually pretty accurate. He still survived with some of his own units there. That was perfect in the way he took that out. But the helicopters are coming in, and Fireblade realises that, and he's rushing back to the SAM units to help protect him. And I bet Lab is feeling a bit disappointed there, as he felt like he was just about breaking through, and then gets destroyed with the defensive rocket. But he's also going for a city now, so he's going to try and increase his economy that way. But I certainly don't think he can outcompete Fireblade right now, so his economy is at 1,075, whereas Fireblade's 1,500. And that's because he's not only expanded much further, he also does have a city of his own. He has used the commandos, so he's used the commandos to come onto this island, and they are expanding for him, but he has kind of forgotten about them. And this is definitely a key location you want to grab, which he's not forgotten about them anymore. He's just realised, as I realise. And he's also got another airfield here for the long-range bombers. Is that a line left over? It looks like it. So Lab has left his line up here, which means some units are going to sort of link to this and start heading in one at a time, and that's getting Fireblade some free kills there. He built a helicopter, and it looks like the command was deleted as he realised he doesn't want a single helicopter to go that way. And if I was Fireblade right now, I think I'd be switching into heavy air units. I'd be building loads of, I don't know, 3 or 4 airfields here, all producing helicopters, as they can just target the ground. Because although Fireblade has anti-air, Lab doesn't. Not that I can see anyway. And he's going for the bomber now. So he's got the strategic bomber, I think, being built there. If I can see properly, it looks like that. And again, he's going for another power plant. I think he's got enough energy at this point. I think he can spend his cash elsewhere. Energy is very important when you need it, but you only need so much. But I think in a situation, definitely going for that city is going to help him try and get out of the situation. And another thing is, the battles have been heavily focused in this area. Both players could have tried to exploit different routes, especially Fireblade, as he already has the capabilities to do so with this commando transport combo. He could fly them in, which I think he has done now. He is doing it now. He's got some commandos over here. He's dropped them across the ocean, sending them this way to try and take out anything from the backside of the enemy. But you could also do the same thing with transport boats. I think the commandos are probably the best idea right now, as commandos are stealthed and the enemy can't even see them, even if they have vision there. If there's commandos over here, you wouldn't see them, but you might see their effect, like destroying stuff. Fireblade seems to be bringing down some units through the southern side of this battlefield, and they will be taking over some territory with these groups of infantry, but this side over here is definitely just going on the offense with tanks, trying to take out all these infantry units here. But Fireblade has 2 rockets, both ready, and has a lot of air units ready to use. I think Fireblade is going to try and take this one very soon, and he's going to do it with 2 rocket hits on the defences when he has the ability to follow through with his units. I do feel like he's being a bit too cautious with it though, but I guess you can never be too cautious when you're battling in Line War. He does have some units right at the back of his area here, which he could be sending these guys down to help reinforce this area. He's tried doing it with a transport line now, and I think the commandos have caught onto it individually. I can't give too much advice on there because these sort of lines confuse me sometimes. I think I know how it works and then I try to use them and it doesn't work the way I planned. So I'll leave that to you guys to figure out, or let me know in the comments, because as far as I was aware that should have worked. If you just do the transport jet, it doesn't pick up any commandos for me. They have to put the commandos on the line, but then you do that and they move. So I might need help with that one. So yeah, these infantry are definitely going to overwhelm these guys. There's energy on the line there, which Fireblade might prioritize, but I just don't think is necessary at this point. But he doesn't quite know the extent of his power supply. Fireblade is getting into the back of the enemy. You could start building stuff here. You've got 4,800 in cash. You could just build barracks. Fill this area with tons of barracks. And take out the enemy that way. But he's probably trying to find a nice little spot. He's definitely taking the territory away rather than going on the offense. Over here the tanks are not being as successful as I think Fireblade was hoping for. And these guys are confused. I think he sent this line up as an attack. But these tanks are going back and forward. This is kind of like the death spiral I was on about before. So he's having to recall these and go on the offensive again in a bit. Whereas these infantry are going to go down here and probably swoop most of that area out. He split him off into 2 lines, I think. He's actually retreat. Yep, he's on the retreat. Oh no, that's Lab. I've switched player, sorry. So Lab is trying to stop this army coming in. And he's going to send most of the units he has spare down this way, but I think we got an artillery going in circles, which is because so many lines are meeting at the same point. He ends this command and he catches onto this one instead of catching onto this one. I think that's what might be happening there. But to be fair, Lab has been busy and he's built up quite a large production over here with infantry and some structures there. There's a lot of eco for him. But unfortunately, if he can't stop this attack, which he probably will, to be fair, so I think those units are going to start flowing through this direction. And Fireblade is going to see that pretty early because of his attack. So how are these commandos doing? Has Lab even spotted them yet? See, you can't see them, even though they're past the fog of war, but you can see that they're there because he's taken out the territory and they're not under your control anymore. So although commandos are stealthed, if you start taking territory, they're kind of easily spotted. But if you only use the blue lines with them, they don't take the territory and you can start sneaking around the enemy's base. Now we've got all of this army coming through. There's quite a large group of units. And they're going to curve around the bottom of the base and they're going to end up coming through at this location, which is heavily fortified without fortifications. And it looks like Fireblade's going to have units down here anyway, so the fog of war will follow these units as they kill units, but Fireblade will always know where they are. And I've noticed that transport jet's gone again, so where's it gone? He's still sending more units this way, so he's building up his commandos behind the enemy's lines and another rocket. taken over the energy. He's building docks there, so that will soon increase his eco. Don't think he has this one. No, not quite. So he'll just have one trade route from that, which is great, because that does increase your economy quite a lot. And now we've had a look at that, we can have a look at how far these units are going. It looks like he's deleted the line command for that. So he's got his units just sort of spread across the map right now. I think he saw that these units were stuck within the base, and he tried to sort that out. But if he leaves these units spread out like this, if Fireblade comes in this way and just starts taking out these units, he's going to take them out one at a time, and they're not going to get reinforced. Which could end up being a problem for Lab, as he'll lose his units inefficiently. And he's got some units down here which could start moving upwards as well. And join this army in a bit if they survive. Fireblade is moving his units all over the place. He's not worried about territory now, so all of these tanks are going to move. Look, now he's got lots of tanks. All of these tanks are going to be moving in towards this army, this group, at high speeds, even if they're not on haste, because they're just going to ignore the territory. They're not going to stop. From Lab's point of view, he can see the stream of units coming in. I can imagine these rockets are going to get used very soon if this attack goes well for him. But Lab does respond. He does have his units going straight in for the attack here. But these units are going to come down and join the fight this way, or they're going to distract up here. However he plans to use them, I'm sure it's going to be a problem for Lab. It looks like he's on the retreat, so he's drawn fire in instead. Some of these units straying off up this way, which is unfortunate because they're going to get caught off by some helicopters. I don't think the helicopters will destroy him, because they're focused on two different ones. Not that you can really manage that, not in this game, but they are focused on one now, so maybe they can destroy that one. There's a lot of infantry going down there, but those tanks did give them enough time to get through there, but some units are going to come up and try and stop this. So we have two rockets there. One's nearly done as well, so that's the third rocket that he could fire all throughout the enemy's base. He may need to use one defensively, but to be honest, he's got so many tanks in this area. He should be pretty much fine. And the artillery there, I have not seen a wall of tanks in this game before, so I'm pretty impressed by that. And I'll be even more impressed if Lab can destroy them. But let's have a look at these commanders. How much progress have they made? He's tried to make these guys move, but they're still on this command because he wants more to come in. And these guys are moving down this way. So they're making good progress behind the enemy's base. I don't think Lab spotted that yet. Doesn't look like he has, otherwise he'd probably respond at least with his air units to try and take those out. And as he does, these units are going to draw out some tanks from this front line. And that rocket's nearly done as well, so he's nearly got 3 rockets ready. Let's have a look at the eco. Why not? He's got 5,000 in the bank right now. He may as well spend it on something. We need to know what he's got. So it's 1,800. He is earning it every minute compared to the enemy, who is earning 1,100, which actually isn't that bad considering he's trapped on such a small section of the map. He's actually been able to keep up quite well with the eco. I think that might largely be in part to the fact that he's got a smaller army size, so his eco can keep up. When you look at the army here, it is attacking in force, but Fireblade's army is made up of expensive units. And he's going to get a bit shocked here because I don't... Actually, no, he's not. He's got loads of anti-air on the back line here. So Lab's going to get shocked. He's got these brand new units in. They're going to come in and try and take on these tanks. And the SAM units are going to absolutely tear them up before they can do any damage. I think he's called them back. So, but on the other hand, Fireblade has managed to build up his own bombers, and he's brought those guys in, and they are not defended by any SAM units right now. Just making sure those rockets aren't building up, but I didn't even notice that Lab had one, I don't think. And Lab has built a rocket. And I think this is going to be the... Actually, I don't know. The SAMs are close. It does go off. I think that's the most tanks destroyed in one go I've seen ever. And they're heavily damaged, so it would have been better if he had done that and then sent these artillery through this way to take out those damaged units before they repair. I heard a rocket just say standing by then. Has they got a fourth? That I haven't spotted. Or is that Labs? Did he build two, or has he just got one? He's just got one. I must have just heard that from somewhere random. I hear these bombers are going to get shot at by these SAM units that are grouped together there, and this one is not going to survive much longer. Oh, there is a rocket. I thought there was. He's firing all the rockets at the same time now. One went off at the bottom there. He sent one in straight through here, and with the lack of anti-air anyway, these rockets are very likely to hit whatever they want. And that has absolutely devastated Lab's base. But to be fair, all the units practically died apart from some of these survivors here, but a lot of the infrastructure actually survived, which surprised me. It's heavily damaged and very prone to a strong attack right now, which would destroy it, but the city survives a nuke. You need 2 nukes to destroy a city. But Fireblade did have a hidden rocket over here. I want to find that now. Yeah, it's in the forest. I could have sworn I heard that standing by. I knew I wasn't going crazy. And now he's going to follow up those rockets with attacks from his aircraft over in this section of the map, which are going to kill off the remaining units in this area, and he's going to follow that through with these tanks here. And to be honest, I'd probably send these guys into attack as well. I know it's always good to leave some behind, but generally speaking I like to go full force and use my retreating force as my defense. Keep the fortifications up, just change the units attached to them to no one, and you can keep the fortifications, I think. But yeah, those strikers are going to do a lot of damage. The helicopters are coming, and they can shoot air units, but the strikers can also shoot air units as well. But these strategic bombers, or whatever they're called, they are not able to shoot air units at all. So they are just focused on ground attacks. And now we've got all these tanks moving in down in this direction as well. It looks like they're going to do a lot of damage through there. If they can just get through, and it would probably be... I still want to bring in these artillery here. And he's got some infantry over there. Imagine these commandos up in the north are coming down now. Yep. And they're going to target the back of the base for Lab. Let's have a look at Lab. What's he doing at this point? He's trying to bring in anything he can from down here, which is kind of like a secondary location. But anything that comes through in this section of the base, which is where he needs his units to defend with, they're going to get destroyed by these strikers and air units. Fireblade can see the rocket pad, but he's not too worried about it. And he nearly has 4 rockets once again. I'm assuming he's still got this one. One in this situation, I think this rocket would be fairly useless. I'd destroy it, get rid of it because of the eco, but to be fair, he's got 6,000 in the bank. So I won't talk about eco, to be fair. Why not have 4 rockets loaded at all times? So he is trying to bring his helicopters into the right position. He's got them against the tanks, which is definitely somewhere he needs to try and take out, which I just don't think he's going to be able to at this point. I think against those 3 rockets that his main base, the 1 rocket that hit his army, it's going to be very difficult, but the rocket is obviously going to fire straight towards this location, I want to say. It's not, it's going to go straight for his base. Probably here. Or is he going for the production? I think he's going for that production, you can see. Which does avoid all the SAM units, so he is going to hit that quite nicely. And he does destroy 3 of the productions, I assume. Yeah, he's taken out all of that. Which is not a bad hit, to be fair. And Fireblade does have his units coming down through here. I think Lab can see that, but I don't think he's responding to it. As you can see, the commandos are shooting something. We can see some damage is being done here, but we can't see the commandos. But you can hear them, and you can see the territories being taken, so that's how you know they're there. But with all this frontline activity, those commandos are going completely unnoticed as Lab is focused elsewhere. These tanks have come down this way. They spotted the other base. They want to take that out because they know this is damaged. I assume they're trying to take that out for that reason. Those rockets are ready once again. They can be fired straight into this town, area, city, base, and run riot again. Which is probably what I'd do at this point. Why not? Have some fireworks at the end of the game. He has a lot of strikers here that he could be using, but I think he's running out of energy when he's using his tanks, his air units, his rockets. To be fair, he can only fire one rocket right now because of that. Because each rocket costs 20 energy to fire. So I think he's trying to save his energy by recalling his air units. But I think the game might be over before he even earns enough energy for that. Especially when he keeps moving his tanks like that. So he's sent off one rocket, I think. Yeah, we heard the energy warning. And that is going to come straight for the city, I would have thought. Or it's coming up this area. Might just be going for that rocket. Yeah. Head on target there. That rocket silo is no more. But he does have the two more there. He can use one again if he decides to. I think he just has. There we go. Another rocket's coming in. And I'm going to say that's got to come to this area, right? There's nothing else more valuable than that key location that can reach. And these commandos in the north can finish off the rest of the base. Which from Fireblade, from Lab's perspective, he still can't see that massive group of commandos. And that city has been nuked twice. And has survived both hits thus far. And unfortunately for Lab, I think it's game over. I think Fireblade has given up on his rockets. He's now just going to go full force into the air units. Saving his energy for that. I think they're going to run out of energy though, because that is a lot of air units he's got there. But he should be able to make it and do a lot of damage in the meantime. And they're going to take out units on the way as well. And there's the big city. I think that's going to go down any second because of how damaged it is already. There we go. It went down with a big explosion. These tanks here have pretty much cleared out Lab from that area. Strikers have done their job there, and Lab can't really see much else. It is literally going dark for him. He literally has one energy well left, a tank. And I was about to say an infantry, but that's gone too. And I think that's partly because Lab might have been fairly new at this. So I'm glad that new players are joining. It's great that you are. Feel free to watch the channel and share your replays as well. I will try to view them as much as I can. I'm pretty much guaranteed to view most of the videos now. I am going to speed this up to the end, because there is just this one energy well that Fireblade needs to destroy and then capture all the territories. Or Fireblade needs to quit, but not Fireblade. Lab needs to quit. But he is trying to build up some structures. He does have a lot of capital left, so he could come back. You never know. But I think he's only got these territories down here. And the strikers have come in to destroy him. There we go. Right, so there are 2 videos on screen right now. If you want to watch any more, feel free to do so. And if you want to subscribe, you'll see my new uploads. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in one of those 2 videos.